look at all these fine people on another wonderful Wednesday morning. Welcome, everyone. It's great to see you. We do have a few laggards. I think it's probably because they were woken up maybe by thunder in the middle of the night and couldn't get back to sleep. And they slept in this morning. Well, that's kind of usual, I guess, for Wednesday mornings. But it does look a little crappy out there. Admittedly, we've only had a couple of really sunny Wednesdays where I've encouraged you to get off of Chamber Chat right away and run outside and enjoy the sun. But I think it's going to be just warm and cloudy today. You know, it's not going to interrupt too much. Better not. I have a golf game this afternoon, so it can't rain. I guarantee you, it won't be raining this afternoon because it never rains when I play golf or I don't play golf. So, well, folks, it's pretty exciting. We're getting to stage or step 3 on Friday morning at 12:01 a.m., where we're probably going to see something that we maybe haven't seen for many, 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 many months, where you're going to be permitted to do a lot of things that you've been missing, certainly since last summer, because I know we did have indoor dining last summer. And, you know, things were relatively normal. But I do want to emphasize one thing here. And if you know some businesses that aren't doing screening, the kits are free. It's absolutely the easiest thing in the world to do. Scott Bridger comes into the office once a week to do a shift handing out kits, and he does his screen. And believe me, if Scott Bridger could do the screen successfully, anybody could do the screen successfully. So, you know, if you know a business that's not doing it, tell them to go on to chambercheck.ca, get their kits, and do what they can to make sure that we can get through what is a really tenuous time right now. We all know it doesn't really matter how many cases of COVID there are. It really matters how many cases of COVID are hospitalized and taking up room in the ICU. That's what matters. You know, people may still get COVID with double vaccinations or single vaccinations, but are not likely to be hospitalized. And so the case count may fluctuate up and down here and there, but as long as we can make sure that we get enough people vaccinated, that we don't inundate our hospitals, we'll be able to enjoy life relatively normal until we get the vast majority of the population vaccinated. Anyway, this morning I've got my good friend Minto Schneider on. She's the CEO of Explore Waterloo Region. She's all things. She's actually the president CEO of the Destination Marketing Organization for the entire region of Waterloo. She works with a lot of our hospitality and tourism organizations, hotels, motels, everybody in the region of Waterloo. And her phone has been ringing off the hook since a year or so ago. Help, help, help. Where can I get help? And she has worked tirelessly alongside of my other colleagues from Communitech, Waterloo Economic Development Corporation, and the Greater KW Chamber of Commerce on the Best Waterloo team. And we've been happy to have Minto sharing time with us a couple of times a week to give us insight on what's happening so that we can collectively work together to try and help as best we possibly can. So Minto, welcome this morning.
Thank you, Greg. It's nice to be here. Morning, everybody.
It's really been probably the most unusual time in the history of these businesses, where many of them have been literally, their doors have been closed for 16 months. You look at Drayton Entertainment, for example, 7 theaters throughout the province of Ontario. Literally, the doors locked for 16 months. These are really, really, really important businesses in our community. And I think sometimes we kind of take them for granted. Um, but give us kind of that 16,000-foot view, Minto, on the impact that that has occurred on all of the hospitality and tourism organizations that operate, and basically give us a count on how many people have jobs in those industries in our region as well.
Well, that's a good question. I mean, people are starting to hire back now because, especially since, thank goodness, on Friday we're going to stage 3. But the last count I had from May from the workforce group was that we were employing about 60% of the people that we employed in February 2020. So we've got a long way to go before we've got everyone back to work. Hopefully with businesses opening again and being able to dine indoors and attractions opening that haven't been able to open up until now, we'll be able to get those people back. But as Vanessa, she's on the call today, she can tell you it is very hard to find employees to come back to work. Some people are reluctant to come back to work because they're concerned about the virus. Some people left our industry because they've been out of work for so long, they just couldn't take it anymore. So that's a problem that's happening. We see it very strongly in the United States right now. They opened a little bit earlier than we did, having done a massive turnaround as far as vaccinations were concerned in the US compared to what they had been doing. But many areas opened up and are running conferences and have everything open and have for a little while. So we're really hearing from the workplace or the workforce shortages. And we're anticipating that's going to happen more and more in Canada. If any of you were listening to CBC yesterday, you would have heard an interview with someone from 2 restaurateurs from Ottawa that were saying they can't even operate at full capacity as far as timing is concerned because they can't get the staff. So that's a problem. As far as, you know, we in our community do very, very well with tourism because we have business travel and conferences and meetings during the week, or we used to. And on the weekends, we host a lot of sport tournaments. Cambridge is actually the capital for hockey and football and soccer tournaments almost every weekend throughout the year. That came to a grinding halt. Okay, not even a grinding halt, a sudden halt, Mark, Craig, to quote you, in March 2020. So we have not seen that business for 16 months. And it takes a little while to get started again. So you can't plan to have a meeting when you're when we've got more than, say, 20 people with very little notice. And the same goes for a sport tournament. So it's going to take some time for our industry to get back to normal. The other thing is we've done a great job, thanks to the chambers, for getting people out to support our local businesses, restaurants, buying online, local retail. We were all pushing that throughout the last 16 months. That's been fantastic, but only our residents buying from our businesses doesn't make the difference. We need people from outside the region to shop and come and stay and spend money in the region. And I'm concerned that even though we're open on Friday, some people will be reluctant to get on the road. It's going to take a little while to build that travel up again. It would help if we had a big lake, bigger than Conestoga Lake, and beaches across the region in the summertime to attract more people, because I know that certain areas of the province are being inundated with people and there's no space. But I think our campgrounds are going to be full, and hopefully Bingham's Big Splash and some of our other outdoor facilities will be able to continue, but also that we'll be able to attract more people indoors, because those are the businesses that have really been struggling.
Mm-hmm. I think, because we don't have sandy beaches and palm trees or snow-capped mountains, people have always looked at our area and said, well, what do you mean what do you mean tourism? Like, there's no tourism here, right? But I think largely most people in the region of Waterloo underestimate the impact, the financial impact, the economic impact that tourism, and when I say tourism, I don't mean like people who have packed the kids in the back of their car and loaded up their trailer. I'm talking about business travel as well. I think people underestimate the economic impact to even just the strip of restaurants down Hespeler Road or wherever it happens to be, the impact is enormous in our region.
For a second, I thought you were going to say strippers when you said that strip.
We don't have them anymore in Cambridge.
When I lived in the Maritimes, and they used to call the strippers girls from Montreal. I'm not sure where that came from, why they did that. I was actually born in Montreal, so I was a little offended by that. But you're absolutely right. I mean, I think when people think of tourism, they think of mom, dad, a couple of kids coming for a day or for a weekend. That is not the case. We've got business meetings, conferences, business travel. Vanessa's Hotel does very well out of Toyota and a number of other businesses that are Cambridge based that bring people in for business meetings or to sell to them. And that is one of the strengths of our business across the region, from St. Jacobs all the way down to the south of Cambridge. And then, as I said earlier, with the sport events, we've got Ontario Volleyball Championships. You know, people come, if the kids are younger that are competing, they bring the whole family, and our restaurants are full all weekend with volleyball teams, whether it's hockey teams, soccer teams, football teams. That's the kind of business that really supports our family-friendly or group-friendly restaurants on the weekends as well.
Yeah. Apparently to see strippers anymore, you got to watch CPAC and the federal government having their meetings. But anyway, yeah, you know, I think there's a real, it's a real fascinating thing from my perspective to look at tourism. Last week, I think, well, maybe it was the first of this week. Might have been Monday. No, I think it was last week, at the end of last week. A young lady came, we're handing out, doing the kit distribution here, and we have self-serve visitor services where people can come in the front door, and we have our brochure racks out in the atrium. And there was a young lady that came in with her husband, and they had their bikes on the back of their car, and they were looking for trail information where they could ride their bikes. And, you know, like it's interesting from our perspective to watch this, because we went through many, many months of having literally no one come to our front door saying, hey, what is there to do in town? Because I think there was nothing to do in town. To all of a sudden now we started to see that trickle in the last probably month or so, while we're doing kind of a combination of handing out the kits and self-serve visitor services. The trails are probably one of our biggest attractions in the area, because we have such a cluster of phenomenal routes throughout the region and down along probably some of the most beautiful vistas in Ontario.
You're absolutely right. And, you know, it's interesting. I think if there's a silver lining to the COVID crisis, it's been that we've been hopefully developing our own ambassadors for Waterloo Region with our residents, who've been able to take more time to explore their own region to find out what we have to offer. We already had been featured with Ontario by Bike for our cycling trails across the region. And I discovered one last year from Cambridge to Paris, which, okay, it does go outside the region. Don't tell anybody that I did that. I didn't spend any money in Paris, though. That's the important thing. I only spent money in Cambridge. But a fantastic trail, and we've got trails all over the region. And if it's walking, cycling, and then again, we have the Grand River, which is another tremendous asset that runs all the way through the region. And we've had people out kayaking, canoeing. Outdoors was really what people could do. So someone asked me the other day what I would suggest for people to do to support our businesses. And I said, well, invite your friends and relatives. Get out and support businesses. Yes, of course. But now invite your friends and relatives to come and visit Waterloo Region. Don't just go out yourselves. Bring your friends and family. Get them to go and stay in a hotel. Take them out to restaurants. Make sure you're showing off everything that we have to offer so we can make sure it's still in business next year.
Yeah, I think that's so important. Let's talk a little bit about some of their struggles and maybe even some of the anxiety that, you know, you and I and Ian and Tony and Matt Bondi from Communitech have had our frustrations in dealing with government. What everybody needs to understand, and I said this many, many times, is the government doesn't work at the speed of business or maybe even the speed of anything normal. They drag their feet on absolutely everything. But Talk about some of these programs that have really been almost seemingly a heavy lift for government to get them up and running and get some money out the doors to these organizations that need it so badly.
Well, first of all, I should give credit where credit is due, because government did do very well at getting money out quickly with the CEWS, Canadian or the emergency wage subsidy, rent subsidy, CERB. Those they managed to get out quickly. The small business grant, not so much. There was a tourism and travel small business grant. It was so undersubscribed they had to extend it. And it was still undersubscribed at the end. There's a tourism recovery fund. We still don't know the details on that. They came out in the provincial budget. And although that's one of the things that, Greg, you'll know we've been asking for, and we still don't have any details on that. We got an announcement yesterday from FedDev from the federal government, that FedDev, or the RDAs across Canada, will be distributing money to tourism businesses, and $500 million across the country, which is great news. They already distributed some money, and we were able to work with our municipalities to distribute money to tourism businesses through the Tourism Adaptation and Recovery Program, or TARP. And the municipalities got motivated, or by that program, because I worked really closely with them, and they kicked in money to put together a program that was completely funded by the municipalities and distributed by us to tourism businesses for round 2 of that funding. So those are some of the things that went well. I mean, I think communication has been the real challenge for the government. They, Greg, you're nodding, because that's one of the things we talk around the table all the time. And when the news came out that we were not going to be moving to stage 2 with the rest of the province, my email blew up. My former chair, Vanessa Stevenson, blew up on the phone. We had a call, and I received over 70 emails within 90 minutes from people that were absolutely furious, because the region came out with, there was no reason, that they didn't announce any reason that we weren't moving to stage 2 with the rest of the province. And I know your phone was ringing off the hook as well.
Yeah, it's been so frustrating. And I think, it's been frustrating for everybody on this call, because you're running businesses and you're trying to stay open and you're trying to keep people employed and you're doing all the things you need to do to keep your business healthy. But, from our perspective, like we've heard it from, one end to the other, like the frustrations of supply chain problems, small businesses accessing some of the grants, some of the grant in the very beginning. Some of the formulas around how a company or a business would apply just didn't work for the vast majority of businesses. And so those things had to be modified. The small business support grant, I still contend that it was put out there as a goodwill token, but the intent was never to be able to distribute all the money that they had in it. They allocated X number of dollars, but they didn't want to send it all out. So they tightened up the criteria so that only certain businesses in certain categories in certain ways would qualify for it. And I think we've seen that all the way through. And I'm not faulting the politicians, because oftentimes it's not the politicians. Politicians' intent is honorable and respectful from our perspective. It's oftentimes when it goes from the mouths of the politicians into the hands of the bureaucracy where they start to tie the knots. And I think we've seen probably more than we want to see, Minto, wouldn't you say, of that kind of working? I think we'll both conclude that the politicians themselves were honorable in their intent. I think it got stalled from them to the actual workings of the programs.
I think you're right. And I did work in government in Nova Scotia for many years. And I can tell you that a lot of bureaucrats work pretty hard. And I know that the folks that we're working with have been working very hard. The challenge is that they're somewhat removed. They're not working with businesses every day like you and I are, Greg. So sometimes they don't understand the nuances of what some of those regulations mean when they put them in force. And one of the things that I found frustrating is you've got people that are making full salary and benefits, sitting in an office fully removed from small business, making decisions that affect people's livelihood, and they have no skin in the game. So I think that that was one of the challenging things.
Yeah, yeah, it concerned us all the way through this, and I think we got to the point where hearing these sad stories and mad stories, um, it was really getting stressful from our perspective. And I'm not suggesting that the government didn't hear them either; they heard them. The problem was being able to get a big enough lasso to get around the horns of all of business and be able to help them through this. And there's some businesses, we all know that did very, very well through this. Whether it was just the conditions that led them down the path, and that's fair. That's fair and that's good. But they're really, from our perspective, we need to make sure that we can get all of the businesses to the finish line. Because, Minto, the next stage of this conversation is we're not at the finish line yet. We're in step 3, but there's no other steps beyond step 3 that we know of. Nothing's been described. What do you think's coming next, and when do you think we can anticipate something coming next? Because I know you've had some conversations with colleagues in the government as well.
Yeah, just yesterday, I was talking with the Minister of Heritage Sport, Tourism and Culture. They keep changing the name of that's a long one. Anyway, I was talking to someone from the minister's office, and she said that they were working on what was going to happen after stage 3, because of course that's the question that we all want to know. We're not nearly as restricted as we were, but we're still anxious to get to less restrictions than we'll see in stage 3. So I think there'll be is fewer restrictions, but it won't be masks off and pedal to the metal yet. And I'm not sure how long stage 3 will last. They say at least 21 days, but they've changed that before, because we weren't in stage 2 for 21 days, thank goodness. 4 days. So I think it'll be longer before we move into the next stage, whatever it is, but I don't think that will be the last stage either.
Yeah. Do you think that's, you briefly mentioned it in the very beginning, are people going to be ready? Do you just all of a sudden hit 12:01 on Friday and then people say, oh, okay, COVID's behind me, I guess I can go out and do my thing? There's going to be some hesitancy. There's going to be some reservations. Some people still aren't going to feel comfortable going inside a restaurant to eat. Do you think that when you move on these stages, that's contributing to some of the hesitancy? So, well, wait a minute, we're in step 3, we got another step or 2 before we get all the way out. So people are kind of using that as, oh, that's the cautionary principle. I don't feel comfortable at doing some of the things the government says I can do. Do you think that contributes to it?
I do. I mean, we've had this discussion at the leadership table too, that it's public health that have been putting the brakes on, even when we were allowed to, feel free to move about the province. But public health was saying it's not safe to go out. So one of the things that we've been advocating for is not the same messaging, but for public health to come out and tell people that it is safe to go out. When we're in stage 3 or whatever's beyond that, you can go out and you can be safe doing the things that are allowed under the stage 3 regulations.
Yeah. And that it's quite a bit different in Ontario. I think I might have even said last week on Chamber Chat that, we were the most restricted area in North America when the rest of the province went to step 2 and we didn't. But in the United States, for example, because the governors hold the key to all of the messaging and all of the regulations in the state, like they just literally went from, 0 to 100 in overnight. Oh, okay, tomorrow morning you can take off your mask and you can do whatever you want. If you're double vaccinated, you don't need to wear a mask. I think that really played into what's happening right now in the United States. So we heard yesterday that the I can't remember how many people live in the state of Florida, but it's not as many as live in the country of Canada.
Or how many Canadians live in the state of Florida?
Well, yeah. How many Canadians? But they have 32 times the number of cases in Florida that we do in all of Canada, and yet they're wide open.
Yeah, you know, and the question is too, what are they counting as cases? Because one of the things I found confusing over the last 16 months is the way they change what they count or how they count them. So I think that we get to a point where we're not comparing apples to apples anymore. And sometimes when the media, God forbid, is trying to be dramatic, they'll use numbers that suit their purpose. Because you can always make statistics say what you want them to say. So sometimes a little bit dubious, but I know Florida opened up. In fact, many conferences and conventions moved to Florida when they were open because it was the only place they could hold a conference.
Yeah. The media doesn't get like that, do they?
I see that there's, Bill Creighton saying there's
20 million in Florida. So, quite a bit smaller than, well, not quite a bit. About 2/3 of what's in Canada, and they have far more cases that they're counting. So, and again, everybody's counting them a little bit differently in how they count them, but there is, there is the Delta variant's now made its way in the United States, so it's starting to move through. A lot less fully vaccinated people. They're going to have their problems through this. There's no question about it. But I think their healthcare system, being a private system, has a little bit more capacity than we have as well. So, they can handle potentially a lot more.
That was one of the most surprising. That was one of the most surprising things to me during this whole thing was how little capacity our healthcare system has in Ontario, but in Waterloo region as well.
Yeah, and when it comes to, I remember talking to Winnie Lee, Dr. Winnie Lee at Cambridge Memorial. She got her first, she's an infectious disease specialist. She got her first wings, I guess, really in SARS. She actually was, had diagnosed or worked with on the first case of SARS in Toronto, in Canada. And so she earned her wings valiantly with infectious disease, but then saying that the capacities are a concern when you're looking at viral conditions that maybe we don't have solutions for. If we have solutions for them, they're not as like we have solutions for the flu and we have solutions for a cold and fever and things like that. But when they're unknown, it presents a very serious problem. And I think we've realized throughout all of this that as much attention to healthcare and the economy, they need to be on a parallel stream here, and we need to be putting them ahead of just about everything else we do to make sure, because we can't have one without the other. We need an economy to fund the healthcare system, and we need the healthcare system to keep people working and healthy so that they'll spend money. So it takes everybody's effort. But before we go on, because we're at the bottom of the hour at this point, you're the very first Chamber Chat guest that has had actually a little giveaway for us here. So why don't you tell us about that and how people right now between now and 10 o'clock can win?
There is a door prize because Vanessa Stevenson told me if I want to be the favorite guest ever, that she would kick in an overnight stay at the Homewood Suites Cambridge to the winner. So, and Lisa, you can't compete because you actually know the answers. Some of you know the art fresco. Hopefully you all know about the art fresco picnic program that we have operating, that we kicked off last year. And just in case you don't know, we were struggling with trying to figure out how to encourage people, our residents, to go out and visit restaurants last summer. So we commissioned 50 artists from across the region and had them decorate picnic tables at the beginning of July, and we distributed the picnic tables to patios, restaurant patios across the region at the end of July. And this year we have a art fresco picnic trail passport that you can download, and you can find that on our website. Anyway, we have 7 picnic tables that are located at different restaurant locations in Cambridge. And the first person to get in on the chat with naming 2 locations will win the overnight stay at the Homewood Suites, Cambridge.
Oh, look at this. Is that, I don't know. Did Corey get it?
Corey, Graffiti Market is actually not in Cambridge. So you, and neither is the Crow's Foot, Corey. You actually go to the bottom of the class because it has to be a Cambridge location, and you must be geographically challenged, Corey.
Corey Gibson, Preston girl didn't put any Cambridge restaurants in there. I can't believe that. I cannot believe it.
She was fast though.
She was incredibly fast. She said she wasn't listening. That's just an excuse. Hey, there's so get your answers in there. If you know 2 of the restaurants or locations that have them. Do I see another? No.
So Greg, there was a question from Steve Wagler about Flair.
So yeah, you know what? That was, from a tourism perspective, incredibly exciting to, actually for you, it's really exciting too, because you can go down and see your grandchild for $79 or $99. That's
if you don't want to eat or have anywhere to put your feet,
right,
or take anything to wear. Flair has been fantastic to work with. We've been working with them since before they launched their first flights for the 6 destinations that are Canadian destinations: Victoria, Vancouver, Edmonton, Calgary, Winnipeg, and Halifax. And that's tremendously exciting. Steve Wagler, you win. He's just happy that I'm answering his question finally.
Yeah. And Caroline says and Kelowna.
Kelowna?
Yeah. Is that right, Caroline? Are they going to Kelowna?
Oh, and Kelowna. Sorry, was that a new one? Because they're not. Oh, they, of course, Caroline.
Yeah, Kelowna starts August 1st.
Ah, okay.
So you can, yeah.
That's fantastic. Now I can go skiing too.
Yeah.
And drinking wine. So it's fantastic for us. Flair, as Caroline knows, has a very small marketing budget, but they are very inventive. So we will be bringing influencers or content builders from other locations, other destinations that they fly to Waterloo, so they can write about Waterloo in their home community. And we will be sending people to other communities from Waterloo region so that they can write about Kelowna or some of the other destinations in our community to encourage people to travel. Their target market is not business travelers. They're really looking to try and get people that don't traditionally travel by air, because it is really like, I'm not trying to, it's an ultra low cost carrier. So it's a different experience than flying WestJet or Air Canada or any of our other national carriers, or Porter, that apparently is becoming a national carrier as well. But it is absolutely fantastic that they're bringing that business to Waterloo region, and we're thrilled to be working with them and the airport to welcome more people, because that is going to really boost the number of travelers that are traveling through our international airport.
Yeah, and you know, that's what we need, right? We need more people using our airport so that we can get more investment into the airport and get it expanded, and that's more attractive to other carriers. It's you know, it's a cyclical thing, and there's no secret to it. You've got to invest before they'll come, because there are certain things that major airlines absolutely need. But I think, you know, this is really, really good. I think I heard them the other day. They said the maximum that they'll fly, or distance that they'll fly, is about a 5 hour. I think 5 hours and 15 minutes is their max, because of the lack of services that you get. Nobody can stand that for any more than 5 hours and 15 minutes, apparently. There was the question, are you going to go to the Caribbean? Well, you know, a lot of the Caribbean, you can get there in less than 5 hours, but by air. But I think they're looking at those destinations as well. This is an amazing low-cost carrier that is being very, very aggressive with their plans and their optimism. They have brand new jets. You know, I think they're actually I heard an individual the other day who went out to Vancouver and flew back in a brand new Flair jet. So, they're investing. They're trying to make sure that they can cover a broad market, and I think that's going to be their success. And hopefully, they're here for a long, long time. Bill, did you like your flight with Flair?
Yeah, actually, Bill Creighton from Chicopee. I've actually been on them 6 times in the last 2 months, and they were great. The service was great. The people were very friendly. It is no frills. They have an app that you can tie into their system, but don't really have movies. Wasn't really entertainment wise. And of course, no food service, no water service, that sort of thing. But if you're trying to get from here to there, very economical and great. You want to do things before you get to the airport though, because there's a surcharge checking in. There's a surcharge for your added baggage. Like everything's plus, but it still is economical if you're going last minute. If you're last time I flew, that was a decision 24 hours before, and the price could not be beat. Like it was like $600 less than WestJet.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's big.
But I'm glad to hear that you're probably excited about Kelowna too, Bill. It's going to be there's great skiing around there. But WestJet is great service as well, and I've flown that many times out of Waterloo region, and it is just so much better flying out of Waterloo region than having to go to Pearson. Pearson's a beautiful airport, but what a pain in the butt getting there.
Yeah, once you fly out of here, you really are looking to go from here every time. And I'm excited that Flair is opening up Florida. WestJet has some Floridas. I love WestJet. Just if you're going last minute, it just makes it's a whole different world to jump on a Flair flight.
Yeah, I loved American when it was here, and it flew into Chicago. And I loved O'Hare because I found it incredibly easy airport to get around, and you can get anywhere in the world, from O'Hare. So I just absolutely loved it, and Bill's dead on. Once you experience that, 15 minutes to the airport, 5 minutes to check in, you jump on the plane and away you go. Boy, you're looking for any opportunity you can.
Well, and the airport is renovating. So they're adding on. Caroline will be very familiar with this. And I was talking to Matthew Chandy last week or earlier this week, and they're looking to offer different food services. So because they know that people are going to have to be buying food to take on board the Flair flights, but they want to upgrade the experience so that it's more reflective of Waterloo region. And they know that there's going to be a lot more traffic going through the airport. So it's all good news at the airport right now. So Caroline must be excited.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's very exciting. I don't want to steal the show, but it's so exciting.
And Caroline, along with Vanessa, are on just about every single chamber chat and participate well, and we appreciate very much. Lisa had a question. She's moderating, of course, but she was on a Minto. She was on, and I can't remember what it was, Lisa, that you were on, but you were on a webinar of some sort last week, I think it was, and talking about the impact of tourism and like an organization like TIFF, actually it was mentioned, I think, on that webinar that if TIFF moved to another country that was more accepting in these times, Lisa, maybe you want to bring some context to that discussion and have Minto jump in on it.
It was an event hosted by the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, and it was really around events and larger events. So the representative for the Association of Restaurants was on, the Association for Concerts. So they were talking about the ripple effect, and the supply chain within the industry is so grand, and that they're in a position now that they've lost technicians and they're losing people to other industries because of COVID. But then the concern was raised that it takes so long to get these events up and running that it won't be until 2022 until some of these larger events get going. And the concern now is that these events will move to other countries. And because of all the restrictions in Canada, that will lose all that economic, we'll lose all that revenue within Canada. So that was a huge concern within the event community.
Yeah, that's an interesting, that's a very interesting thought, and it's probably correct because we've had such strong restrictions. But it may be we lose them in the shorter term, but I think that they'll come back in the longer term as restrictions are lifted. I mean, we've lost a fair amount of, well, everything shut down. So around the world, there weren't things happening. But as I mentioned earlier, Miami and Orlando, which have big conference centers, picked up a lot of business that couldn't take place in other places because of the restrictions. I think the same thing will happen here. The larger events generally plan 3 or 4 years out. I think that they'll start looking at Canada again now. The problem is that we're going to have a couple of lean years where they couldn't choose us because they didn't know what the restrictions were going to be. On the other hand, I got a call yesterday from someone that wants to bring a big music event to Waterloo region in 2022. It takes that long to plan it, but they're looking at July 2022. So stay tuned for that because it's a pretty exciting one.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Conferences, convention centers, that's always been my pitch of trying to get a convention center here. It's because if you had an idea for a conference or a convention, try getting space in a conference facility or convention facility in and around Toronto. You're probably 10 years down the road before you could actually get some space. So, I think that will help also drive some business back. So we may lose some, but then availability eventually when things open up, they'll have to go to places that are available and we'll be sitting there ready to take their dollars.
I'll tell you a story about Toronto. During SARS, there was a big conference that ended up canceling because of SARS. And a friend of mine worked at the MTCC, Metro Toronto Convention Center at that time as a sales manager. She now is a senior VP at Destination Toronto. And the same conference was booked to happen in 2020. And they moved from SARS, from the SARS time in 2003. The next booking they had a chance to book them was 2020, and they had to cancel again. So, wow. If you needed space at the Metro Toronto Convention Center, I'm guessing that in the next 9 months, you could get anything you want. Hopefully after that, it'll be busy again. But on that note, we can host smaller conferences here. We can host up to 700 people in one place. And if you are interested in supporting the region, Tapestry Hall is a fantastic venue for a conference in Cambridge. And we've got lots of hotels that can host people. Think about the Hometown Advantage. It's a program that we'll be launching in September. And it's encouraging people to, if they belong to an association or a group that they can influence where they hold their next conference, bring it home, bring it here. We would love to host them. And we at Explore Waterloo Region can help pull a bid together and guide people through all the things that you have to do in order to host a successful event, whether it's a sport or business event.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. And I think coming out of this, I really, human beings are pretty resilient people, right? We've been through catastrophe since the beginning of time. And there's been plagues and there's been other things that there's been world wars. There's been, all kinds of disruptions to regular life. And yes, this is probably, certainly a monumental disruption to regular life. But as we come out of this, we learn very, very quickly. We're smart and we adapt. And I think that it's going to make us not just more resilient, but stronger, better, and with more might. And I think there's no question about it. Our economy is going to come back booming strong. We actually should have had by now a bit of a recession. We should have, the timing was kind of there that we should have. In fact, we were talking about that in the early 2019, we were worried about, you know, you know, we're a little bit overdue. So, you know, this came along and probably corrected some things and maybe even deflected that, which would normally be an economic recession. And I think I think there's going to be full wind in the sails once 2022 comes around, and once we know more about this and we get some more control over the virus. I think it's our world, and we're going to make it our world, and we're going to keep it going. So I'm very optimistic for the future.
Yeah, I'm a little worried about inflation, but
Yeah.
and you know, I'm glad I have a granddaughter now, because she's going to be paying off our debt. She and her offspring. It's not going to be my problem anymore.
So investing in those little kids' education is going to be really important, because they're going to need a whole ton of money to make it happen. That's for sure. No, I think you know, I'm kind of excited about it. I know, you know, and I'm not speaking out of turn. You've expressed it publicly as well. We were maybe more than a little bit upset when we didn't move into step 2 with the rest of the province at Best Waterloo in our discussions. In fact, I think it's even safe to say we were really, 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 really angry, especially when our email was going crazy and our phones were going crazy. And, you know, there was a lot of choice expressions, let's put it that way, on our Best Waterloo meeting that week, and what we should be doing. And in fact, you know, just to let this group know, we pretty quickly, because of the influence Best Waterloo leadership team has, we were able to choreograph a meeting with Bruce Lochner pretty quickly that day, and the CEO for the region, to talk about that. And we all knew that it actually is Dr. Wong's call. That's Shuli Wong is the chief medical officer for the regional Waterloo. There is no one that can override her. She completely makes the call. She was the only one that could change her mind, and the only individual. It's a little bit dictatorial when it comes to public health, and you know, but I think you know, we got through that reluctantly. We're on a better path. I was so pleased. I was so worried that we were going to be deflected down the road a little bit from moving with the rest of the province into step 3. Thankfully, we're not. And if you look at the numbers, there's good reason for that. Lots more vaccinations. Corey Kimpson was advocating for it, and I was retweeting her tweets there all week. Get out and get your shot. And I think it's paid off for us. Just in the numbers, we can see that it's paid off for us, and we got to encourage more and more people who haven't been vaccinated to get vaccinated. We just really need it badly. So, and as Corey just put in the chat, there are lots of opportunities. If you know someone, send them out, whether it's their first or even their second. They can go out and get their vaccine, provided they've waited enough time. But you can even get your second dose right away and speed things up. That's what we want to do. We're doing great as a country and as a province, and I think it's going to lead to brighter days down the road. And so I'm going to have a little bet with Minto. It's going to be lunch on the patio of the winner's choice. I say we're going to be less than 21 days before we go into step 4.
Okay. You're on. I think it will be 21 or more.
Okay. There you go. Everybody's heard it here. Minto's going to have to buy me lunch sometime in August.
I hope so. I hope so. It would be money well invested, and I will choose a restaurant in Cambridge.
Yeah. Okay. That'd be awesome. That'd be absolutely awesome. Are there any questions for Minto? Because she covers a pretty broad range of things. We've been dealing with some questions here, but maybe one, you know, some of these organizations, let's take the Butterfly Conservatory, for example. They've been literally closed. I drive by it a lot because, you know, as I sneak out of town, going up to the cottage every day, with the construction on 24 highway here at the bridge, I've had to divert around. So I oftentimes drive by it and noticed that the grass was getting kind of long and you could tell that nobody was there. Are organizations like that, in your opinion, going to be okay? Are we going to be able to help them through this?
I think so. I mean, they've been very careful about the money that they've been spending, and Doug has been at it for a long time. I think, thank goodness, they can open on Friday. Dragging it out any longer would have been a challenge, but they do see a lot of visitors, and it is a wonderful place to stop in for a visit. So on the way to the cottage, maybe you want to stop in and pay a visit. So I think that they'll be okay. Opening Friday, it was very, very welcome news.
Actually, they have incredible tarts there at if you've ever had one of their tarts. We used to have a tour of senior citizens that would come in on the bus and tour Toyota, and we called it the Toyota Tart Tour, because they would stop at the Butterfly Conservatory and they would go through the conservatory, and then they would have a tart courtesy of the Butterfly Conservatory. It was great. And it was seniors coming in here saying, have you had the tarts out at the Butterfly? You know, I said, no, I haven't. Oh, you gotta, they're the best. So of course, you know, I'm a butter tart fan. I had to go. You have to do some things.
So Greg, bringing up coach tours, that's one that's going to be tremendously challenging. Yeah. So we have a company, Great Canadian Holidays, based in Kitchener, and coach companies around the world are really challenged. I mean, those coaches are worth more than $250,000, and operating them with a third of the number of passengers that they'll carry doesn't make financial sense. So those tour operators have really been struggling through this, and still not sure when they're going to be able to come back.
Yeah, because there's another group that was just, you know, the barricades just went up, the wheels came off the buses, and it's been nothing since March, and we need them back for sure. And to answer Vanessa's question, I think in the fall, because a lot of our tours out at Toyota, you know, are school-age kids and university engineering program kids. I think you'll probably see those tours come back in the fall when Toyota gets a little bit more confident. Right now, our tour folks that are out there that decided to stay on are actually helping with the screening process of their employees out there right now. So yeah, we'd love to see the tours come back. They were a great program for us. I think the last year that we had a full year at it, we put about 18 or 19,000 people through on those free tours of Toyota. So it's
one of the most popular things for tour operators is that Toyota tour. And I have to say, I did work as a tour operator in my deep dark past, and anything that is free and also as interesting as the Toyota tour would be top of my list as a product manager too.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know, screening kits are free, and we want every business to come and get them because they're free. I've got 100,000 of them sitting out here in my front area. So if you know a business that needs them, don't hesitate to recommend them. Anything else, Minto, that you want to leave us with that we should be, obviously, let's get out there and support our local tourism operators and our businesses. Even go and spend a night at Vanessa's place, you know. Not like that. I know that didn't sound maybe right, but it's her hotel.
No, I just want to thank you for having me on today. It's great to have a chance to hear from everybody, and fly flare. Make sure you come back and invite your friends and relatives to come and visit you in Waterloo Region in Cambridge.
That'd be awesome. Congratulations, Steve. You were the winner, naming those two restaurants very, very quickly. Thanks very much, Minto. Can't wait to see you, I guess, tomorrow.
Tomorrow at 10:30.
I'll see you Waterloo. Yeah, for sure. Folks, have a great Wednesday. We'll see you. Oh, by the way, just before you go, you can't leave yet. Next week, this is like game changing from Chamber Chat's perspective. Live from the Gaslight District. I'm going to be there. We're going to give you a tour of the Gaslight District while it's under construction. You're going to hear a lot of banging and hammering and all kinds of stuff, but we're going to do it right from the site. So watch for your email to sign up for Chamber Chat next Wednesday. Other than that, folks, have a great Wednesday and a great rest of the week. And let's go Friday, step 3. Let's have some fun and spend some money in some restaurants and stores.
Thank you.